Paula, I think it's on the re-entry playbook that we referred to before.
Yeah.
How this rolls out with global liquidity. Obviously, the world has pumped. I've lost count of the trillions of dollars that have been pumped into the banking sector.
Mm.
And obviously with the stimulus packages as well. To me, one of those big key points on the re-entry stuff you spoke of is how the banks survive this and how that liquidity ends up working, whether those government stimulus packages work. And also at the speed with which China turns its economy back on, are probably the other one. But to me, yeah, banking liquidity is, and again, this was just experience of going through the GFC with a very large global property company with a $4 billion debt portfolio with 12 banks who were behaving very poorly indeed, was
So
just,
anecdotally, sorry, Rachel, anecdotally, in terms of some organisations I'm connected with, the banks have been, fairly supportive in terms of, there is a difference with the GFC, is this understanding that the smaller and medium-sized businesses are taking a beating. Some of them are taking, which was travel, hospitality, are taking a beating. And from what I'm hearing, some of the banks are taking that longer-term view that this, hopefully, we know there will be long-term impact, but that this really hard, the big hard hit to hospitality, for example, is shorter term. And actually looking at the fundamentals of some of those businesses and saying, well, okay, there will be a way for them to get back on track, and how can we help them, as opposed to just turning off the taps because of the current situation. So that's, something that I've heard anecdotally from some people I'm connected with.
I think the difference between this situation and the GFC is that the GFC, there were fundamental systemic issues within the banking system, and they're not there. It's a different impact that's been causing that. So I suspect time will be one of the key factors in terms of the recovery of some of those businesses that have been impacted, and for how long they can, shut down before some of the liabilities that the banks are helping them out with become a serious issue. If for example, in Australia, we're lucky, we're already talking about that we might start to ease restrictions on things like pubs, Scott Morrison said yesterday. But there are other countries around the world where those businesses won't be operating within the next 3 to 6 months. And I think we're going to see a variety of outcomes in terms of how those businesses can ultimately be supported because of that kind of time frame.
Sarah, sorry to cut you off there before. I do apologise for that. But the reason I say, are you sure, is I think Australia and the UK are pretty strong on liquidity. The United States, I'm afraid I don't have that faith in terms of their ability to listen to the GFC. China's debt is they're holding a big chunk of the world's cash reserves, but how they manage their debt, I think, will be a big indicator. And to your point on playbook before, I actually see those impacts starting to hit in 2021 in terms of it's going to take that long for all of this to feed through. And obviously, is there a second wave of this thing? Is those sorts of things. I actually had a conversation with a bank in Canada the other day where they didn't say it directly, but it was pretty clear. They were asking about liquidity risk, and it was the United States in particular that they were referring to. And so I think that's, I know one thing I'm keeping an eye on in terms of those longer term trends. And Paula, I think your re-entry playbook is a really good way to put it in terms of where this goes, and the ability to adapt is keeping an eye on those sorts of things.
Well, and it's interesting as well. So not only from a global economy perspective in terms of cash and debt and funding, which I think is going to play out over the next 10 years, but how are governments, and it's again not a conversation probably for today, but how are governments actually going to change in their thinking when they've got millions of people now at Centrelink out of work, and people's mindsets are now shifting, going, hang on a minute, people can't live on this new starter wage coming when we re-entry back. So there's a lot of opportunities where we could actually maybe have a different future. So a lot of people say that the future's arrived. So all this future of work and the future of what's going to happen, it's here. So again, back to that drinking from the fire hose kind of thing.